What have you caught yourself doing that made you realize you might be a little weird? Whenever I run long distances, I start laughing uncontrollably. I'm sorry, but that's really cute. After about 3 years of living on my own, I've started to talk to myself. Not just the odd word either. I sometimes have full-blown conversations with myself about what I'm doing at the time. I read somewhere that talking to yourself is actually good for you. Just don't do it in public or too loud. If I'm reading a book and a facial expression gets described, I immediately act out that facial expression trying to figure out what the author means. I was going to submit something similar. I tend to imitate a lot of facial expressions from shows and movies, and sometimes I have a lot of facial expressions within a monologue, so I just look like I am making very concerned, angry, happy faces for very little reason. Whenever I'm going to meet anyone, I'll plan conversations in my head ahead of time, just in case something of the sort comes up. It usually never happens. Or when they do come up, I get too anxious to actually respond how I planned. Dancing in front of a mirror, naked. Found Buffalo Bill. If I hear someone talk in a weird accent or say some strange word, I instantly imitate them as best I can. Apparently I do it a lot when out and about. I work answering phones and I do this automatically if I have anyone that has an accent, especially Indian accents. Sometimes I don't catch myself until the end where I speak normally, so I just mocked someone for the entire call, haha. Telling my phone to be quiet when it interrupts me. I do that all the time. Sometimes on the way home from work at night, I ride down the road interviewing myself, asking about my past and how I feel about certain issues. There's something kind of calming about it, and I think I actually learn a lot about myself in the process. But if someone saw me doing it, it would look very freaking weird. I do something similar, but my interview is with a therapist. I say things that I'd never say in reality. I'm guessing it's cathartic. I get really emotional with movies, a lot more than in real life. Washing my hands before showering, so I don't wash my body with dirty hands. I pretend I'm famous and think what I would say in interviews, which movies is like to work in and which celebrities would be my friends. OMG, I thought I was the only one. This thread made me realize I'm not so weird after all. Repeating conversations I've had with people, aloud, to myself when I'm alone. I just want to hear it again. It's like a self-comfort thing. I sometimes think in English. It's not my native tongue. I do this all the time. I think I consume too much English media. Telling my cat that I understand him in a serious voice while knitting socks. I'm 33. When I'm in the shower, I make up situations and act them out. So for example, the other day when I was in the shower, I pretended I was at work and one of the customers spat in my sister's face. So I made running movements with my arms and started punching the wall of the shower, imagining it was the guy's face. I don't drink, but sometimes at parties I am still forced to get up and dance. The issue is at about midnight I go into this weird twilight state where I will sometimes completely zone out when dancing, to the point where I had a girl tap me on the shoulder at the last party to ask if I was on drugs. When I was stone cold sober, it was then that I realized I had been jumping up and down yelling at the top of my voice with my eyes closed, and there was an empty circle around me and a lot of freaked out girls staring at me. TLDR, I lose myself in the music a bit too much. This is awesome. Alright guys, so ever since I can remember, my family dog has loved standing up on her hind legs and putting her forepaws on you to greet you. Long story short, I am now incredibly adept at ballroom dancing with a dog. Sometimes I put the classical station and pick my cat up so he's against my chest and my arms. Then I start waltzing. Edit. Please tell me you unannounced just start doing this in front of new people. I'm fascinated with entomology and I constantly find myself stopping in the middle of paths, wherever I am, to check out spiders and insects. I'm the same way with any creature, really, but people probably think I'm weird for watching bugs so much. In fact, outside my apartment complex, a spider lives in the tree branches that dangle down above the walking path. I always make sure to take time and watch him for a little bit before carrying on my way. I did this yesterday at the bus stop. Saw a group of ants hauling a half a bug. I looked at 2 other people at the stop and thought, yelp. Proceeded to crouch down and watch the action until my bus showed up. I would sometimes imagine conversations with fictional characters, usually of my own invention, in stories, sometimes talking to each other and sometimes to me, which seems normal enough, until eventually I realized that one of them was different. One of them stopped being consciously imagined a while ago. I know that I'm making the other characters talk, but he just does it sometimes. I can't direct him or change the situation or get him to stop if he doesn't want to. We get along okay, it's no bother. I know he's not real and I'm probably just putting a name to something that was already there, but it makes me feel like I must be absolutely mental. Having elaborate made up worlds in my head and crap that I usually think of before I sleep. I do the same. I have whole different worlds, races, and countries thought up with semi-thought out histories and social interactions. I look forward to going to bed not for the sleep, unless I'm dead tired, but for these imagination sessions. Unfortunately I suck at art, and have never made it very far trying to write anything. My so caught me hopping around the garden following the rabbit. He always thought I put the little quirky things on until he saw this, that and I was sat watching a cooking show at my Mill's house. They were cooking lobster. I started snapping my hands like claws for around 30 seconds repeating the word lobster. Go on. Sometimes I crawl on my hands and knees in the backyard following my cat around. He loves it and it feels like we're on an adventure together. LOL, your neighbors must crack up watching you from the windows. Whenever I listen to music, of any kind, I always imagine myself performing it on stage in front of friends, family and how impressed they'd be. I'm usually the frontman and I imagine how I'll be moving about on stage, how the crowd will react and all that stuff. Me too, except I'm usually a widely known DJ like Tiesto or Guetta in a huge crowded stadium. When I was a kid I used to eat my foot nails. I still do sometimes. I love sniffing cats. They smell amazing, usually. My cat breath smells like cat food. I never eat the meat, fish, chicken with the meal. I finish everything on the plate and save it for last. I like to pour all of my chips out onto the plate and systematically eat the worst ones first, gauging each one based on its beauty and completeness, eating the most perfect chip last. This is frustrating because whenever anyone wants to eat a chip from my plate, they almost always go for the best one. Watching animal videos on YouTube. I'm not talking about puppies and kitties but more so safari animals giving birth, alligator turtles snapping watermelons in halves, or baby elephants standing on their mothers' backs. I just get really immersed in my animal videos. Your life calling is probably working at a zoo. Live the dream, man. I create voices for my pets. I have always done that. They sound the same though no matter how many dogs or cats I have. Cats and dogs have different voices though. My cat will have a higher pitched voice than my dog. I will only use them when I see my pet walking around or notice them doing crap. Like for instance, I will see my cat walking to the backyard and I will say, I'm a kitty and I'm going to go out back and look some for mice and possibly sleep if the need hits me. It's always in a comical way. I just love animals. Our corn snake has a high-pitched squeaky voice. He's a spaz. Our lizard sounds like Guru from Team Forster's DBZ abridged. He's a grump. And we've not decided one for the boa yet cause she's only a few months old. When I am not focusing on anything in particular, I go into a zone where my mind works in the form of a visual keyboard, typical to any computer or smartphone keyboard. I zone out, look at objects and think of the name, then spell it out on my keyboard. For example, right now I'm looking at a window. The W, I, O and W stay on the top row of the keyboard, the D on the middle, and the N on the bottom. This word is not split up evenly through the levels of my keyboard, so it is not what I call a perfect word. I do this with all objects in the room to find which ones are perfect words. I have managed to get this skill down to a good second or two per object over the last 3 years of realizing what I have been doing. I find myself acting out fight scenes in my head and making all the explosion noises myself. I play with my eyebrows. It's almost uncontrollable. I did it a while before I even realized I do it. Then one day noticed I was creating a bald spot. It feels weird and good at the same time. Hard to explain. I also do this. Glad I found someone else. It's kind of a stress habit for me though. I talk to my cactus throughout the day. His name is Eddie. I also regularly move him around to the sunny spots and say things like "here comes dinner" when giving him water. This is adorable. D. The auxiliary jack in my car went out a few years ago and I am not one to listen to the radio very often, so I typically drive in silence. There was a moment a couple of years back when I was driving my 45 minutes home from work while making cow noises at myself, each louder than the last. After 5 minutes of this, I remember stopping mid-cow noise and having this pivotal moment in my life where I realized I just wasn't quite sure about myself anymore. I do believe it's called a moo. I suppose I should mention what sparked this thought since I started this biz. I was wiping my nose and the snot kinda came out thin and I started twirling the tissue for whatever reason, and then it became a thing of how long it would keep going around the tissue in a thin line. Like some kind of snot spider web, lol. I thought this would go away once I got older, but ever since I was little I sort of keep track of different imaginary lives in my head. It's hard to explain, but every couple of weeks or so I'll imagine up a new scenario and set in character and kinda just play it out inside my mind whenever I have time to think. I just assume that other people do not do this, and I'm just weird. I do the exact same thing. The weirdest thing about this is how varied those stories are. Happy to know I'm not alone. I catch myself getting off on tangents about pills a lot. I can tell you a lot about different pills. That's off-putting for a lot of people. I like to stand up and gyrate on the bus and then quickly sit down like nothing happened. Blows people's minds. I was sitting on the toilet browsing Reddit, stood up and immediately fell down because I was lightheaded. Probably going to happen again in 3 or 4 minutes. This is your life now. I told a wall it was a motherfucking bee because I stubbed my toe on it. At least you don't try to reason and bargain with printers that aren't working. Diplomacy does not work on inanimate objects. I put thongs on to walk on wooden or tile floors. As someone who defines thongs as tiny underwear, I was a bit confused for a moment. Whenever I'm alone at home, I'll catch myself laughing out loud, which then turns into a series of weird noises. Usually I keep going until I feel like I have emptied myself of all weird noises. I wave to cute dogs. Same. Actually, I wave to any cute animal. I was putting away laundry today and realized how much I love hanging shirts. When I'm alone in my office and I complete a task well, like leave a customer happy on a phone call, I spin around on my chair a little and hum the Indiana Jones theme. Picking my nose. Talking to myself. A lot. My internal monologue is very loud. Hacking up phlegm from my throat. Crap's stuck. Avoiding eye contact at all costs with people that walk past. Avoiding eye contact at all costs with people that walk past. Talking to myself. A lot. My internal monologue is very loud. Yay. I know both. I started putting my phone in my bra when I didn't have pockets handy. This was mostly at home while doing chores or something. I started doing it in public without realizing it and a friend gave me a weird look once. Dang, you dresses with no pockets. Can we get a picture? For science. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.